João, thanks for being with us. I'd like to ask you a few questions about the TFFF. So, what is it and why did Brazil launch it?
Well, it's an international fund that makes investments and turns a profit. And the idea is to have that profit go pay countries that have forests for them to keep those forests standing. I would borrow money at a low cost. Part of the money comes from governments, and they play a first loss sort of role. So they de-risk the money, the investment that's coming from the private sector. And we take that bunch of capital and we invest into the financial markets in a very safe way. And then, we pay back everything we owe to these countries and these investors, and whatever's left in the pot, we use that to pay for each hectare of tropical forest, hopefully $4 per hectare for each hectare that they conserve throughout.
So I understand that this was created in a context where ODA, the classic scheme,
exactly.
North-South type of scheme, is quite dire, right? So I understand the logic of it, but why would Brazil launch that scheme now?
Well, of course, having to host COP30 gave it a little push. This was the first time COP was held in a city that is in the middle of the forest, basically. But we did know that it was also something very difficult, negotiating policies and programs within the United Nations framework for climate change is something very challenging. You got to get an agreement amongst everybody. So what we decided to do is let's use COP as our major vehicle here, but let's do negotiations on the sidelines. And then let's bring those who we know are already willing to do this. And that's why we did it.
And so Brazil started to put money in the fund?
Brazil was the first country that came out and said, yes, I will invest in this. Okay. And that unlocked Indonesia, which unlocked Norway, which unlocked Germany and France. And then and it's kind of like a domino effect.
Yes. Is it a coalition that is only open to government, or can the private sector or the finance sector join in the endeavor?
This is a blended finance scheme. We hope to get, again, 25 billion in investment coming from governments, and I'll come to philanthropy later. 125 billion coming from governments because they will be coming in a junior position. That means that they will be taking the first loss. They're taking a greater risk in the structure. But because they're taking a greater risk, they're de-risking the private sector. Yeah. And then stage two would bring in the private sector. We don't expect them to take that junior position because that's a public policy thing to do. But they will come if they feel that they're getting a decent or an honest market return for the risk that they're taking. No matter how tight the budgets are for many of these countries, they're still much bigger than a foundational or philanthropic investor. But if you can amass a large enough number of these people, and there is a large number out there, then they can make a significant difference.
So, Christopher, from that perspective, can you share with us why does it matter for investors? What's in it for foreign investors concretely?
Actually, TFFF at first I was a bit skeptical, and as I think I'd mentioned, junior tranches of anything is something that as a banker you sort of don't touch with a barge pole, neither for you nor for your clients. But then I looked at it a bit more and I learned more about it. And eventually I became fascinated with this for the reasons that basically are, I think it's incredibly efficient for the funds that are earmarked for nature conservancy. It is the most efficient way to do it because of the fact that you unlock a multiple of the money that you put in. That catalytic role, if you're going to play it, you might as well do it at scale and with a big leverage. If you can put your funds to work to preserve forests, it's of course incredibly more efficient than the wonderful projects that I've seen, which are incredibly capital intensive and complex.
I heard you mention that you also feel that for family offices or families who want to invest and have that long-term investment in mind, that's also quite attractive.
Yes, I think my point was basically that so what I've seen from the families that I've worked with or that I'm working with on the philanthropic side, things are changing very rapidly, especially as you have this handover from one generation to the other. Younger generations have a very different requirement. If you ask 18 to 25s, amongst the client base of PT, they would say, to change anything, 40% should be done. Thought it should be done through business. Another 40% said should be done through your investments for those who don't have a family business, and only 20% through grants, which is what their parents or their grandparents typically
It was
would
the
have
classic
used.
philanthropy.
10 years ago would have been a bit more difficult for people to accept, but now it's, I think, exactly the kind of mechanism that generation is going to be looking for. The family offices clearly demand a much more structured approach, and this is where, again, I think a structure like the one that you guys have developed is much more in line with what both younger generations and very professional family offices are looking for nowadays.
What's a call to action to other governments or partners to join the initiative?
So I guess we could say that, if you come in, the sooner you come in, the more ability you have to participate in the discussions that are shaping how this thing is going to work. I think this is something that mattered a lot to some of the countries that have already made pledges.
Yeah.
This, as you said, this is a truly multilateral initiative. If you believe that this is, this is the way forward, that we need to continue insisting on that sort of solution, there's maybe nothing as obvious as this to be supporting.
Thank you very much.